Have you ever wished that you could just hit, like fast forward, on learning a new skill?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
skip all those hours of practice and just like jump right to being an expert?
Absolutely.
Well, in the world of AI, um, that's what researchers are trying to do.
Yeah.
And there's this new breakthrough called B-Star
Uh-huh.
that is really shaking things up.
That's right.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what is so groundbreaking about B-Star.
So B-Star is interesting because it tackles a really, really fundamental problem in AI, which is that as these models get more and more complex, they need more and more data to be able to learn.
Yeah.
And that data typically comes from us humans,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very, very expensive and time-consuming process to create.
Right. It's like we're constantly having to feed the AI
That's right,
with
Chip.
more and
Yeah.
more and more information just to get them to
Yeah.
learn a little bit more.
That's right.
But B-Star is all about making the AI more self-sufficient,
That's right.
right?
Ugh.
So how does that work?
So we call it self-improvement, and we've seen other attempts to try to improve AI's ability to self-improve, but typically they would plateau.
Mm-hmm.
B-Star takes a very different route, and so we're seeing a lot of really interesting results with it.
That's really exciting. So
Yeah.
how does it work? How is this AI self-improving?
Okay, so imagine you're learning to play the guitar.
Right.
You could spend all of your time just practicing like the same 3 chords.
Yeah.
And that's something we call exploitation in AI. Or you could experiment with like new melodies or new techniques, and then we call that exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to actually getting better is this balance between sticking with what you know and trying something new.
Right. So it's finding that sweet spot
Right.
between the two.
That's exactly what B-Star is doing. But unlike previous methods, which would kind of set that balance beforehand,
Oh,
B-Star will continuously monitor and adjust that balance throughout the training process.
oh wow.
So think of it like a self-driving car that is adjusting its course in real time to account for like traffic and other conditions.
So B-Star is actually learning how to learn,
That's right.
which is,
Yeah,
that's wild.
it is.
Okay. But how does it know if it's on the right track? Like if it's actually improving?
So we use a metric called the balance score.
Okay.
And it's essentially measuring how well it's balancing this exploration and exploitation.
Right.
And so we're looking at both like the quantity of outputs that it produces and then also the quality of those outputs. And if it's producing a lot of good outputs, we know that it's learning effectively.
That's kind of a report card
Yeah,
for the AI.
that's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
Okay. So does this approach actually produce better results?
Yeah, so we see in the research that they tried this out on a variety of tasks, including math problems and writing code and answering common sense reasoning questions.
Wow, that's a lot of really different challenges.
It is.
So how did it do?
So first, let's look at math problems. So for this, they used data sets called GSM-8K and math, which tests the model's problem-solving abilities. And on GSM-8K, B-Star was able to achieve a pass at one accuracy of 53.8%, which is a really big jump from the previous best, which was 46.8%. And on math, it was able to get 27.8%.
Wow.
So
So figuring out math.
it is.
That's amazing.
That's right.
Okay, what about something like coding that seems like way more complicated?
Yeah, so even with coding, which is a very, very difficult problem for AI, B-Star was able to make some pretty significant improvements. So they used a data set called APPS. And with this, B-Star achieved an accuracy of 19.6%,
Okay.
which is, again, significantly higher than the previous methods that they tried.
So it's not just a one-trick pony.
No, it's not.
It can do lots of different things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that other attempts at self-improvement kind of hit a wall.
Yeah.
Does B-Star have the same problem?
So that's what's really, really exciting about this is that it keeps getting better.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't just improve for a few rounds and then plateau.
Okay.
It keeps getting better and better over multiple iterations.
Mm.
So, for example, in the math training, they gradually increased something called the sampling temperature.
Okay, sampling temperature.
Yeah,
That sounds very technical.
it is. But basically, imagine you're like brainstorming ideas.
Boy.
A low temperature would keep your ideas kind of close to what you already know.
Right.
A high temperature would encourage you to think more outside the box.
Okay.
So that's what sampling temperature does. And as they gradually increase this temperature, B-Star was able to avoid getting stuck in a rut and find new and better solutions.
So it's like it's constantly trying to push its own creative limits.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think about it.
Even as it gets better.
That's right.
Okay. So are there any other techniques that it uses to kind of boost its learning?
So something else that's really interesting in the research is that they use additional reward models.
Okay.
So think of this as specialized feedback systems that give more nuance than just saying right or wrong.
Okay.
So for example, when they were testing its math skills, they used what's called a process reward model, or a PRM.
PRM.
Okay, what is that?
So instead of just telling the AI that, like, its final answer is right or wrong?
Sure. It actually looks at each individual step the AI takes to get to that answer and provides feedback.
Oh, so it's like having a teacher that grades your work and then gives you notes
Exactly.
on how you could improve.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Wow.
So it gives the model this really, really comprehensive understanding of what it's doing well and what it's not doing well, and allows it to really learn from that feedback.
So we've talked about the balance score, and we've talked about how it adjusts this exploration and exploitation.
Yeah.
But why should we care about this whole self-improvement thing in AI?
That's a really great question. So if we zoom out and think about the bigger picture, I think it has really, really big implications for how we develop and use AI in the future.
Okay.
So imagine AI that can learn and adapt on its own without this constant hand-holding from us humans.
Right.
That would open up possibilities in so many different fields.
So it's less time spent on data prep
That's right.
and more time spent on actually tackling real-world problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so does this actually work with, like, larger AI models?
So that's what's really encouraging about this, is that it seems to scale.
Okay.
So they tested it on a model called Llama 3.18b, which is a fairly big model, and they still saw these really significant improvements.
Oh, it actually scales. That's great.
That's right.
What else is really neat about this approach?
So I think one of the really interesting things about BStar is that it makes this whole self-improvement process more transparent.
Okay.
With other methods, it's kind of like a black box. You just run the model and hope for the best.
Right.
BStar allows researchers to really see what's happening at each step and why certain approaches are working better than others, and how the model is adapting its strategy over time.
So it's not just making the AI better, but it's making it so we can understand how that improvement is happening.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. BStar is about self-improvement in AI. It balances exploration and exploitation, uses this balance score to stay on track.
That's right.
It's showing some really amazing results across all these different tasks.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Well, so this version of BStar focuses on fine-tuning these key parameters like the sampling temperature and the reward thresholds.
Okay.
But there's tons of potential for future development.
Like what?
So, for example, they could explore incorporating even more sophisticated decoding techniques
Okay.
that could allow the model to have even finer control over its exploration and come up with even more diverse solutions.
So like giving the AI a bigger toolbox
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
to play with.
That's right. And then on the exploitation side, we could look at using dynamic reward models that actually adapt and change over time,
Okay.
which would allow the feedback to be even more nuanced and relevant as the model learns.
So it's all about making it more adaptive
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
and responsive.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side of this,
Right.
but I'm really interested in the real-world applications. Like what fields could be transformed by an AI that can do all this?
Oh, the possibilities are really, really exciting.
I bet.
So think about something like robotics,
Right.
where machines have to adapt to these very complex and unpredictable environments.
Yeah.
Right now, most robots rely on pre-programmed instructions. But with BStar, we could potentially see a future where they're constantly learning from their experiences and getting better at what they do.
So it's like instead of them just being tools,
Yeah,
they can become more like partners.
absolutely.
That's amazing.
Right, so imagine like a robot surgeon that could learn from each surgery that it performs
Wow.
and continually refine its techniques
Yeah.
and reduce the risk of error.
That would be amazing.
Or think about like a search and rescue robot
Okay.
that could adapt to different environments
Right.
and navigate this challenging terrain more effectively.
Just in healthcare and disaster response alone, the applications are huge.
They are, yeah.
Wow. But a lot of times we think about AI as being good at, logic and reasoning.
Right.
What about creativity?
That's a really great question.
Like, could BStar help AI become more artistic?
So we've already seen AI create some really impressive artwork and music, but a lot of times it feels a little bit mechanical.
Right.
Because it relies on these existing data sets and patterns, and it's kind of just remixing what's already out there.
Yeah.
But with BStar, potentially AI could develop its own unique style, its own creative voice.
So instead of just imitating us,
Yeah,
it could actually become an artist in its own right.
that's right.
Now, that's a game changer.
That's right.
So, imagine AI composing original music or writing stories, or even designing new products.
Absolutely. And because B-Star is so good at balancing exploration and exploitation,
Wow.
it could potentially find that sweet spot between pushing creative boundaries and still producing work that resonates with people.
Right, yeah.
It could help us to discover completely new forms of art and expression.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
This is making me think about education, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what if we could use B-Star to create personalized learning experiences
Right.
that adapt to each student's individual needs and learning style?
That's a really cool idea. So imagine a tutoring system that can pinpoint a student's strengths and weaknesses
Yeah,
and then tailor the curriculum accordingly.
right.
It could give customized feedback, adjust the pace of learning, and even recommend new topics to explore.
To be like having a personal tutor for every student.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Okay, so this conversation is getting me really excited about the future of AI.
It's a very exciting time.
It is, but with all this talk about self-improvement and the systems constantly evolving, it does make me wonder, where does human control fit into all of this?
That's a really important question. And as AI becomes more autonomous, it's really, really critical to ensure that we maintain a certain level of oversight. We don't want to create something that we can't understand or control.
It's a balancing act,
Yeah.
between letting AI learn and evolve
Yeah,
and also making sure that, we're still steering it in the right direction.
that's right.
So it sounds like we need to be thinking not just about the technical aspects of AI,
Yeah.
but also the social and ethical and even philosophical implications.
Absolutely. AI is not just a tool, it's a reflection of ourselves and our values. And as we develop more and more advanced systems like B-Star, it's so important that we do it responsibly and thoughtfully.
Yeah, we need to ask those tough questions
Yeah,
and have those difficult conversations about what kind of future we want to build.
absolutely.
So it's not just building a better AI, it's building a better future with AI.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way to put it.
Okay, so this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has.
We started by talking about B-Star's ability to help AI models learn more efficiently.
Yeah.
But this conversation has really made me rethink this whole field of AI.
I think that's what's so exciting about these kinds of breakthroughs is that they really challenge our assumptions about what's possible.
Absolutely, and I think that's something our listeners should take away from this episode.
Yeah.
B-Star is just one example of the incredible innovation that's happening right now in AI.
That's right.
It's a field that's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And who knows what breakthroughs are just around the corner.
That brings up a really important point. How do we keep up with all of this as individuals?
Right.
It can feel like a tidal wave.
Yeah, it can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So how do we even begin to keep up with it all?
It starts with curiosity.
Okay.
So read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, of course.
Of course.
Seek out events related to AI. There are so many resources available now, both online and in your local community, that it's easier than ever to really tap into this world.
And you don't need to be a computer scientist to understand this stuff or to even form an opinion about how AI is going to impact our lives.
Not at all. And I think the more we understand about it, the more we can make informed decisions about its development and use.
Yeah. It's like anything else. The more you learn,
Yeah.
the more empowered you are
Absolutely.
to
Yeah,
participate
that's right.
and to have a voice in this conversation.
Yeah. And don't underestimate the power of conversation itself.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to your friends, talk to your family,
Right?
talk to your colleagues, anyone who will listen, share what you're learning, ask questions, and be open to different perspectives.
A lot of times those casual conversations are what really lead to some big change.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into B-Star and this constantly changing world of AI, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay.
What kind of world do you want to create with AI?
Oh, wow. That's a powerful question.
It is.
I don't think there's an easy answer, but I think by staying engaged, informed, and curious, we can all play a part in making sure that AI is used for good in the world.
Well said. And for those of you who want to learn more about B-Star and all this research that we discussed, we got links in the show notes to the original paper and some other resources as well.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.
Absolutely. And they could also look at different ways of like how they select the outputs that are used for training. So there are like more sophisticated decoding techniques that could give the model even finer control over its exploration
Right.
and allow it to come up with even more like diverse and creative solutions.
So it's like we're giving it a bigger toolbox
Exactly.
to play with.
Yeah, and then on the exploitation side, they could look at using like dynamic reward models
Okay.
that actually adapt and change over time.
Right.
So that as the model learns, the feedback is even more nuanced and relevant.
So it's all about just making it more adaptive.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side of things, but I'm curious about the real-world applications.
Sure.
Like what fields could be transformed by an AI that can do all of this stuff?
I think there are so many possibilities. It's really exciting to think about. So one area that comes to mind is robotics.
Okay.
Where machines have to adapt to these very complex and unpredictable environments.
Yeah.
And right now, robots mostly rely on these pre-programmed instructions.
Uh-huh.
But with BStar, we could potentially see a future where robots are constantly learning from their experiences.
Right.
And getting better and better at what they do.
It's not just them being a tool anymore, it's them being more like a partner.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, imagine a robot surgeon
Okay.
that could learn from each surgery that it performs
Wow.
and continually refine its techniques and reduce the risk of error.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, or think about like a search and rescue robot
Oh, yeah.
that could adapt to different environments and navigate challenging terrain.
Yeah, just in healthcare and disaster response alone.
Right.
The applications are huge.
Yeah, they're really significant.
So we tend to think of AI as being good at, like logic and reasoning.
Right.
What about creativity?
That's a great question.
Like, could BStar help AI become more artistic?
Yeah, so we've already seen AI create some pretty impressive artwork and music,
Right.
but it often feels kind of mechanical.
Right.
Because it's relying on these existing data sets and patterns.
Yeah.
It's essentially remixing what's already out there. But with BStar, AI could potentially develop its own unique style, its own creative voice.
So instead of just imitating us,
Exactly.
it could become an artist in its own right.
That's right.
That's a game changer.
It really is, yeah.
So, we could have AI composing original music or writing stories or even designing new products.
Exactly. And because BStar is so good at this balance between exploration and exploitation,
Right.
it could potentially find that sweet spot between pushing creative boundaries, but still producing work that really resonates with people.
Right. So it's not just totally out there.
Right.
And the stuff that we can connect with.
Yeah, and it could help us discover entirely new forms of art and expression.
Wow. Okay, so this is making me think about education.
Yeah.
Like, what if we could use BStar to create personalized learning experiences
Oh, that's a cool idea.
that adapt to each student's individual needs and learning style?
Yeah, so imagine a tutoring system
Okay.
that could really pinpoint a student's strengths and weaknesses
Yeah.
and then tailor the curriculum based on that.
Right.
It could give customized feedback, adjust the pace of learning, even recommend new topics for them to explore.
It'd be like a personal tutor for every student.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, so this conversation has got me really excited about the future of AI.
Yeah.
But, all this talk about self-improvement and these systems constantly evolving, it does make me wonder, where does human control fit into all of this?
Yeah. That is a really important question.
Like, are we just going to let the machines take over?
I don't think so,
Okay.
but I think as AI systems become more and more autonomous, it's really critical to ensure that we maintain some level of oversight.
Right.
We don't want to create something that we can't understand or control.
So it's a balancing act again.
It is, yeah.
Between letting the AI learn and evolve
Yeah,
and also making sure that we're steering it
right.
in the right direction.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we need to be thinking not just about the technical side of AI, but also about the social and the ethical and even the philosophical implications.
I think that's absolutely right. AI is not just a tool, it's a reflection of ourselves and our values. And as we develop these really advanced systems like BStar, it's so important that we do it responsibly and thoughtfully.
Yeah. We need to ask those tough questions and have those difficult conversations about, what kind of future we want to build.
I think that's really well said.
So it's not just building a better AI, it's building a better future with AI.
Yeah, I really like that.
Okay, so this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has been.
We started by talking about BStar and its ability to, help AI models learn more efficiently.
Right.
But this conversation has really expanded my thinking about the whole field.
I think that's what's so great about exploring these cutting-edge advancements is that they often lead us to these unexpected insights and really challenge our assumptions about what's possible.
Absolutely. And I think that's something our listeners should take away from this episode.
Yeah.
That, BStar is just one example
Right.
of the incredible innovation that's happening in AI right now.
Absolutely. It's a field that is just constantly evolving.
Yeah, and who knows what breakthroughs are just around the corner.
That brings up a really important point. How do we keep up with all of this as individuals?
Right.
Yeah, it can feel like a tidal wave of new developments coming out all the time.
It can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So how can we even begin to keep up with it all?
I think it starts with curiosity.
Okay.
So read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, of course.
Good word.
Seek out events that are related to AI.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many resources available now, both online and in your local community,
Right.
that it's easier than ever to tap into this world.
And you don't need to be, like a PhD in computer science
You don't.
to understand the basics
No.
or to have an opinion
No.
about how it's going to impact our lives.
I think the more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to make those informed decisions about its development and use.
Right. It's like anything else. The more you learn,
Yeah.
the more empowered you are
Absolutely.
to participate in the conversation.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the power of just conversation itself.
Right.
So talk to your friends, talk to your family,
Mm-hmm.
talk to your colleagues, anyone who will listen, share what you're learning, ask questions, be open to different perspectives.
Sometimes just those casual conversations can really spark some change.
I think so too.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into BStar and this constantly evolving world of AI, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
What kind of world do you want to create with AI?
That's a really great question, and I don't know that there's a simple answer, but I think by staying engaged and informed and curious, we can all play a part in making sure that AI is used for good.
Well said. And for those of you listening who want to learn more about BStar and the research that we talked about today, you can find links to the original paper and other resources in the show notes.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.